I'm Bessie Weiss. I joined Webflow earlier this year, running customer and partner education. It's my colleague, Shirley Way, who also joined earlier this year to run our new certifications program, and we're here to tell you all about it today.
So in today's session, if you don't remember which session you signed up for, is we're going to be uncovering what's coming soon to Webflow University, as well as kind of the most part of this session today is digging into our new certification program that is going to be part of that new Webflow University experience. And then also focus on the first new certification that we're launching as part of the new program, which is the Certified Practitioner. And then we'll end with how you can be involved and stay up to date and be a part of this journey with us.
Yep. So let's start with the context. Webflow University, we've got a new mission, which is that we are here to enable all of our users throughout their journey with Webflow. And that's like the sort of the all users throughout, kind of thinking about the broad set of users that we have, from customers to service providers, and even within those different roles, different sizes of companies, and really at all stages of expertise with Webflow, and that's what Webflow University is focused on. In order to do that, we've got kind of three pillars that we are building out. So the first is content. We need the content that actually enables all those users, meets them where they are, to take them where they're going to go. I'm going to step over here. This is very. I might have to stand behind the podium. Okay, and building out pathways based on your role, for instance, or based on what it is that you're trying to achieve or which product you're working on. What is it that you're trying to achieve? How do you get there? What do you need to know based on who you are? And part of what is going to enable us to do that is actually a lot of the stuff that you've seen unveiled here at Conf. So we're rebuilding Webflow University on Webflow again. It's on Webflow today. We'll be relaunching it next year on Webflow, but taking advantage of WXP, a personalized experience. So when you land on Webflow University, you'll see the content that we know would be relevant to you based on what we know about you. Analytics, so if you're a partner, you can have insight into what it is that your customers, how your clients are using Webflow University, since we can have insight into how folks are using it and what will help lead to success, so that we can then help drive that for all of our users. I call this using the power of Webflow to teach the power of Webflow. And then the last piece is what we're here to talk to you about today, which is we're revamping our certification program. And some of you might be familiar with certification programs like AWS or Salesforce, where they're really having those credentials is part of what makes for a community of folks who are truly verified and qualified to be working in those products. And we are building out a program that allows us to be at that level. So let's talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, so Bessie just alluded to this, but why are we revamping our certification program, and what does that mean for you? So some of you may or may not already have taken some of the exams that are currently on university today. Some names that might sound familiar, like Webflow 101, CMS, Layout Level 1 and 2. And so we know and have heard from the community that there is a desire to be able to validate some of your knowledge and expertise when it comes to Webflow. We've heard that from our community, but what we want to do is level that up so that when you earn those certifications, there's proven value in the marketplace. And so what that means is also that our new certifications are going to be more rigorous and have higher stakes, so that when you earn them, it has a lot more meaning and value behind them. And so that means they're going to be proctored, and they're also going to be something that you're really going to want to share and be proud of, and share that with your networks on LinkedIn, on your profiles, on your portfolio. We're also going to change these certifications to be more relevant to your role and your experience level. So whether you might be newer to Webflow or you're a more advanced user of Webflow, maybe you have a specific domain that you really want to showcase, we're going to have certification tracks that are more aligned and can demonstrate your expertise a little bit more to who you are and how you use Webflow. So that way, when you showcase it, it's going to give you that extra validity that you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing. And also what this means for Webflow's community and Webflow's community success is that when we have a strong pool of those who are certified, that those people stand out in the crowd, that those people that are certified in Webflow are those that are the trusted experts, whether it's building in-house on projects with your teams or servicing a client. We're all speaking the same language and we're all understanding the power of Webflow together and that we can deliver those results for those projects. And so that's also going to be whether it's your client that trusts you or your employer that trusts you, that you're that validated expert because you've got the right credentials to back that up.
So we're going to talk about kind of what we mean by these journeys by role, and this is really applying to the content that we're building out and how we're building out and approaching the experience. So the first is the Webflow practitioner, which is kind of foundational. This is the information that everybody needs to know to be successful with Webflow. Shirley talked about speaking a common language, understanding best practices, being able to understand kind of the power of the platform end to end and speak to that, whatever your role is. Then looking at role-specific information and what you need to know. So developer learning paths will be focused on what developers need to know. There'll be a developer learning path for Optimize, but it's how to build. Whereas the designer learning path for Optimize is going to be what is it that you need to know to be able to think about designing and offering different options to people and how you can get the most out of it from that perspective. And then each of these learning paths will also include specializations. So for developer, it might include third-party integrations and APIs. Designer, it would probably be 3D design. Developer might be developing for 3D design. So kind of looking at what is it that you need to know based on who you are. And then, of course, our marketers, who are an incredibly important part of our user base and need to know not how to build in Webflow, but they need to know how to use our products, build for SEO, make use of the CMS. And then finally, there's the solutions architects, and these are I call them the experts in our midst. What do you need to know when you're at a higher level and you're thinking about how to architect for Webflow, how to build out the entire program, how to build and direct a team who's actually going to be doing the building yourself. And then, or themselves. And then each of these learning paths will have certification preparation for the relevant certifications. So let's dig into that.
Yes, so what we're going to unveil is what the new certification tracks and the model is going to look like, starting with right at the bottom, the practitioner. And it's intentionally at the bottom here because it's really that building block foundational certification that is then going to lead into any of the role-specific tracks to come. And so while this is going to be agnostic and really relevant for no matter what your domain is, this is where we recommend everyone get started, but it's not going to be a required prerequisite before entering any of the role-specific certification tracks. So surprise, surprise, much like the learning paths that we saw outlined earlier, there's going to be a marketer track, a designer, and a developer track. And within those tracks, there's also going to be progressive steps for those candidates who want to achieve. For the marketer, for example, starting off with the associate marketer and being able to showcase a specialty within the marketer certification tracks, such as maybe SEO optimization as an example, something we still got to figure out. For the designer track, there might be those who are a more junior designer. Maybe they've got a year or two under their belt with Webflow and they really want to validate that they've got the right foundational designer skill sets with Webflow. They'll start off with the associate designer. And they might want to move up to another specialty track or maybe that professional level. They're a more seasoned designer with Webflow. And so they'll have that opportunity to progress as their journey progresses with Webflow as well. And you'll see that the associate designer and the associate developer, very similar tracks here, but specific to their specific roles. The associate level is going to be that mandatory prerequisite before taking the specialty or the professional level track. And then what we've got as what I like to call, I think we all have a version, is like the creme de la creme, is the solutions architect. This is someone, if you're both a designer and developer, you might want to try to go for the solutions architect certification. It's going to be someone who has both that technical expertise as well as a design experience to marry those two into a solutions architect role here. And so because of that expectation of having both a technical and design expertise, it's going going to require both the designer and the developer certification, with at least one of them being at that professional level, because we're really looking for someone who's the expert amongst experts when it comes to Webflow.
Yeah, one of the things that we keep bumping into is like the visual designer, or the visual developer, or the technical designer, and it's like Webflow starts to marry those roles and kind of looking at, so most people are forward with one, and so that's why we're saying, okay, you only have to be associate level at one of them, but you need to be at the professional level to be able to speak in depth about what we can do with Webflow.
So what we just shared isn't all launching all at once. That is just mostly a vision of what's to come, and really to build that excitement and give you a framework for how we're thinking about certifications and the direction we're going in. The first one that we are launching is the Webflow Certified Practitioner. And this is intentional. Again, it's the foundational certification that we recommend all Webflow users to take, and that's where we recommend them to get started. It's actually launching in beta today. So we have some people, I think, Hal, I know, some people here that might be taking the beta version of the exam, and we'll take that feedback and launch this for general availability early next year.
So who's the practitioner exam for? Oh, are you raising your hand?
No, I thought you were asking.
Oh, sure. You know what? That would have been good teaching. So really, it's anybody who needs to understand the power of Webflow and what this platform can do. And we pulled out some job titles. This is only a small selection of relevant job titles. You could be a project manager, you could be a business owner, you could be a CMO, although I don't think most CMOs are going to decide to sit this exam, to be honest. If you're in this room, if you're on the 4th or 5th floor of this building today, you're a practitioner. There's nobody that this isn't relevant for. And so that's where we decided intentionally to start, because it felt like it was most relevant to the broadest set of our audience, and also because one of the challenges that we've heard is that understanding best practices before you start getting involved, really getting that foundational information, is key to everybody's success with Webflow.
So what you can expect on the exam for testing a Webflow practitioner's knowledge is that it should verify their understanding of common terminology when navigating and collaborating in Webflow, as well as some of those essential best practices. And then what it's also going to be is that when you do get that Webflow practitioner certification, you should feel confident that you know how to speak the language of Webflow in the context of web design, development, and optimization, that you know the value of operating in Webflow, and that you know the core features and functionalities. You also should know what it looks like when you set up for success utilizing Webflow's powerful platform to build and design your websites.
We want to make sure folks are successful with this, so we're building out what you need to prepare for the exams, starting with self-paced training, which, like all Webflow University self-paced training that's available today and will continue to be available, will be free. So you can focus on the specific things that are relevant to you. You can go at your own pace. We're launching the practitioner certification in beta today. We'll launch the learning pathway to prepare for that certification right at the same time that we launch the exam GA. The reason why is part of what we're doing in beta is, the exam's going to evolve. We don't want to put out a learning path, have a bunch of people invest a bunch of time, and then say, oh, never mind, sorry, that was a waste of your time. We're also going to be offering premium resources for folks who feel like they need this. That would include live sessions, preparation sessions, Q&A sessions, practice exams, the ability to kind of go deeper if you feel like, hey, I need more, or I want to really invest in this, and especially as you are moving through the program, if you're looking to get multiple certifications. Those will be available in mid-2025, right around the same time that we're hoping to relaunch Webflow University on WXP.
So how do I get certified? Well, congratulations. Today was step one. Attending this session is the first time we've really unveiled the new program, as well as the new certification that we'll be launching with first. And now this is also your opportunity to take out your phones and scan the QR code here, because as we're gearing up for that launch, you're going to have the opportunity to sign up to get early access to some of the learning materials that we will be building out for the certification, and potentially some surprise and delight perks that you'll get exclusive access to. And so, again, all the resources that you're going to need to prepare for the Webflow certifications, starting with the practitioner, is going to be on Webflow University. You're going to see different modalities. You're going to see learning materials, learning pathways, exam outlines, practice exams, a variety of tools that is going to help you prepare to gear you up for success to pass the exams. And then once you're ready to take the exam, you can schedule it. If you haven't heard of the platform Certiverse, that's the platform we're using to host and deliver the certifications. It's new to Webflow University as well, and it's going to be something that you can do on your own time. So it's super flexible. It's going to just be a virtual exam that you have and use your own device, so that you don't have to block out a specific date and time to sit through the exam. And then when you take the exam, I just want to also kind of reiterate that we are upping the game for these certifications. So they will be proctored. It'll be AI proctored, and you'll have a 90-minute time limit to be able to complete the exams. And then I'm sure all of you will pass, and so you're going to want to share that achievement and show it off on LinkedIn, on your own professional networks, on the Webflow marketplace, as well as even if you're on Upwork, there's also that integration that we're going to provide so that you can show it off loud and proud. And then the journey doesn't end there. Because we are up-leveling the intensity and the rigor of our certifications, we do expect that you're going to maintain that certification every 2 years, and more to come on how to keep that certification fresh and up to date.
Okay, so if you only remember 3 things from today, we're revamping our certification program. So it's going to be much more valuable in the marketplace. It's going to verify your skill sets. The first exam is coming GA early next year. We're going to have the learning path coming at the same time. We are going to be launching the second exam in middle of next year, and as well as premium resources at that point. And then we'll be rolling exams out over the coming years. And then the third, could be a part of it. And please go ahead, sign up. We will be keeping folks posted both about the development of this exam, but additional exams as we evolve the program. Thank you. Any questions? Yes? Oh, you go first.
Okay. Shirley, Bessie, thank you so much for your time.
Huh?
Okay.
Hey. Yeah, Shirley, Bessie, thank you for your time. I'm curious, so as somebody who works internally for a company that uses Webflow, I'm thinking about how do I go to my manager and say, I'd like to take the developer exam, or maybe I'd like to take the designer exam, and I want you to foot the bill. Is there going to be resources available for someone in a role like mine that could explain the value to a manager or somebody that maybe doesn't speak web as fluently as we do?
Sure. So I'm going to take part of the answer to that question, and I'll let Shirley take part of the answer. So part of what we are going to be rolling out next year are actually subscriptions for our enterprise customers. So as a customer of ours, you could purchase access to Webflow University, and there's going to be live training, and it will also include those certification exams. So on a simpler front, they may already have decided to purchase access for you because it will be helping to enable their teams. On the more specific front, like for instance, if they haven't purchased that, do you want to take the why this should matter?
Yeah, so that is going to be something I'm going to note down when we think about like the resources that we're going to be building. That will definitely be part of sort of a pitch to your manager why this is going to be valuable for you. A lot of what we're going to be also sharing is also, what's going to be covered in that exam. And so it might behoove of your manager to want to make sure and validate that you've got those skill sets that are going to be covered in the exam. And that's going to speak to the value of this. When I say that I can pass this, these are all the skill sets that we're going to be validating. And because it's going to be a more rigorous process, it's not just a fluffy, open book exam that you're going to be taking, but it's going to be validated and backed by Webflow University. So it's going to provide that sort of value back to your company that they're also invested in your career development as well as validating that you've got the right skill sets. So even I know there's partners that I've heard that want to hire talent that they wish that there was some way that they could also validate that. That's also what we're hoping to be able to help solve for with more rigorous and serious certification exams.
Yeah. Yeah. We were actually literally talking about this before the session. So thinking about Webflow is both easy to use and not easy to use, and that's a danger. And so being able to say, I actually know how to not just use it, but use it right. I can set us up for success is the part of the value of these certifications. Like, how do we know that somebody at one of the partners, how do you trust a partner that you're hiring? How do we know that you're hiring somebody internally? I mean, I mentioned AWS and Salesforce. Those are now job markets, in part because of the certification program. And so that's part of what this program will allow us to do, is say, these people actually know what they're doing. So yeah, anybody can build in Webflow. Not everybody necessarily should, especially at the enterprise level. Let's make sure we're hiring people who know what they're doing. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. I'm curious how this is going to integrate with the Certified Partners program, and if some of these levels are going to be required, or if it will give you a leg up over other partners, increase leads, or change what kind of work you're able to get.
Yeah. That's a great question. So even for aspiring partners to apply to be a partner today, you do need to pass the current certifications. And we've heard that feedback where it's not really testing the right things. And so at least even for the partners who are in the program, you're going to have more validated partners that get to enter the ecosystem. So that's really great that people aren't passing through as easily because maybe they're just kind of getting by with our current certifications. So that's one thing. For the certifications for the partner program, like throughout your journey, there's going to be there is one that's like specific to partners, and that's going to evolve and change as well. But for certain partners and certain tiers, there might be a level of requirement to have at least one or a certain number of certifications within that partner organization to be an active partner. So there is going to be that ongoing commitment there.
The practitioner exam is going to become the prerequisite for becoming a partner.
Yeah.
For those of you who are already partners and are certified currently, at some point those certifications will expire and you will then get to take the practitioner exam. And what we've been talking with Emily and Neil about in terms of like the entire program is, where do we want to sort of say this is a gate, and where do we want to say this opens up access to additional, perks or opportunities? And so that's part of what we're working out. But there is, as Shirley said, there's going to be kind of you have to have this base level of knowledge, and then what does it mean to have the higher levels of knowledge? What does it mean if you have solutions architects on your team versus no solutions architects, and what kind of projects would you be working on potentially, for instance?
And giving you more distinction in the marketplace.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. One more right over here, and then I'll get to you. Yeah.
Sorry, out of order. Hi, Darren, Swevin Design. I just want to follow up his question.
Yeah.
I have two, I'm sorry. His brought up one for me, just very explicitly. This is not a replacement for the certified partner certification. This is an additional. So when this exam goes GA, yes,
we will be updating the certification requirements that exist right now. So it will ultimately replace, these exams will ultimately replace the ones that we have in place.
That's parallel for a while.
Yes.
Right. Okay, got it. Great. And then thanks for clarifying. In terms of monetization, to your question, I heard you say that there would be premium resources to prepare for the certification exams, are the exams themselves going to be a paid resource or asset or avenue?
Yeah. And we're finalizing the pricing on that. We're trying to keep it as affordable as possible. We have to cover our costs. So the platform, the proctor, and also we have a badging platform. So you'll have like a verified badge that you can put. So we're kind of working on balancing out, making sure that we're covering our costs and making it as accessible as possible.
Gotcha. Now just be per practitioner, no like agency. Like we have 5 people that want to go through the program. Is there any sort of?
So I mentioned that we were going to have a subscription at the enterprise level. Potentially, we would have a subscription at the partner level. We would also assume that once you become a partner, you would have a certain number of seats where you'd have access. Again, some of these are the things that we're kind of working out, also in terms of how we handle entitlements in our system. And so that's part of what we're figuring out. But thinking about it from, for a small agency, just a couple of seats should be sufficient. But if you're at a large agency, it might be really valuable for your entire team to have access to all of the premium resources and multiple exams.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah? Are you, yeah? We got to get you the mic.
mine was very
Got people on TV here.
Mine was very related to that question. So when you say subscription, like is it a monthly subscription, annual? Is there like a one-time fee for like freelancers to pass the certification?
So the exam is a one-time fee.
Okay.
Access to the resources would be an annual subscription.
Will there still be the free Webflow University resources?
Yes.
Yes.
All of the self-paced content on the university will remain free. There will be, as part of subscriptions, access to like live sessions, whether that's live instruction or live Q&A, or sort of study sessions and prep sessions. There'll be access to practice exams. So actually the Certiverse platform allows you to take versions of the exam to see how you're doing. So you'd have access to that as part of the subscriptions, in addition to being able to take the exam. And the exam itself would be included in the subscription, so you wouldn't have to buy a subscription and then be able to sit the exam. And in fact, I'm a big proponent of including being able to sit twice. So if you don't pass the first time, you don't have that pressure of like, oh wow, I only have one time to take this. If you do pass, then you can always take a second certification once that becomes available. Yeah.
I have one more question if nobody else does.
Okay. Well, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. As part of the new website experience,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that fall outside of Webflow, like when you say design and SEO. Obviously, there's copywriting and the use of Figma or designing for Webflow. And then in development, there's accessibility. How do you cover things like that are kind of definitely part of the website experience, but not necessarily part of the Webflow workflow at the moment?
That's a really good question. And I think the answer is by partnering. When I talk about what we're trying to cover, meeting the needs of all users throughout their journey with Webflow, that is a lot of real estate that we need to build out. So when we started saying, okay, what does that mean in terms of third-party stuff? You need to know how to get from Figma into Webflow, but we can't teach people Figma. There are a lot of people in the community who are incredible teachers and who are working on building out learning for Webflow or for Figma. And so looking at how we can work with them to say, hey, we can't cover this stuff. But this is what it means to design in Figma for Webflow. And then we will cover this is what it means to then get it in Webflow and build it correctly.
I can also add to that
Yeah.
in terms of what will be tested and in those role definitions. So right now it's kind of like a blanket of like saying a developer or a designer, but where we get into defining what that means as a designer who's working in Webflow, as a developer who's working in Webflow, and why we have even specialty distinctions is that as part of designing the certification exam itself. And if you would like to sign up to be a subject matter expert, I'm also plugging that out there, is I work with our community and a large sample size to help me define what do you do day to day in your job role and what are your job role titles and what do you do when you're in Webflow and what are some of those key things that you do frequently and those things that you need to know about versus, so also the criticality and the importance of those certain tasks. And then it sort of backtracks into then in the platform, what are those areas that you'll need to be familiar with in order to be able to test that you've got the right skill sets within Webflow, particular to your expertise and domain. So it really is also like the sort of like science behind the certification is this up here, for example, for the practitioner is really involving, for this one, for example, we had over 60 subject matter experts that weighed in on what does the job task analysis of any Webflow user what does that look like, and what are certain topics that we should be covering, and then even in writing those exam questions, testing that this is meeting the right level of information and expertise that we're expecting of this person, as well as some of those across the topics that we need to cover. So this is also sort of the nerdy behind the scenes of how the certification exam comes to be.
Yeah. Did you? Oh, yeah.
I think there.
I think this was somewhat answered by that last question, but on just the developer side, and we're having this conversation at breakfast, for people who are classing things and building structurally in Webflow differently, like some people Lumos, some people client first, other agencies have their own preferred classing systems and structural systems. Are those going to be add-on certifications like, hey, this person knows Lumos, this person knows client first, or is it going to be pretty much, we're not going to like certify that type of thing, or what's the direction?
Third party knowledge, is that, yeah.
Somewhat, but it seems pretty integral of like just preferred pathway of structuring in Webflow at the designer level.
I think that's kind of where the specialty exams come in, and that's part of what we have to figure out still. And we will be reaching out to the community to figure some of that stuff out, right? Like how much does this, like if everybody has to know React, then that's part of the foundation, right? But so kind of, thinking about that, I think, but Shirley, correct me if I'm wrong here, we're not going to test people on their knowledge of third-party apps as part of a Webflow certification. Do you agree with that?
Right. Like you should know what's available and how to integrate, but we're not going to go in like the specifics of specific apps. I mean, it could be that where when we talk to the community, and I would love to hear more about that conversation, is how much of it is more broader to everyone in terms of what you need to know as a developer in Webflow versus what is more niche and what is more like your preference. But across the board, there should be a philosophy of like what's the best practice, and that's what we're going to focus and hone in on.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah. Do you have a question? I think this is the last question.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So at my company, I'm actually helping to build our own certification program for our platform. And I'm curious to hear more about how your relationship with, I guess, like other teams at Webflow have had to change and evolve now that you are building these certification programs, I guess, in terms of like when new features are being built, things like that. I guess like what kind of lead time are you asking for? How has that kind of changed your processes and your approach in that regard?
We are building this plane while we're flying it. And doing a really rigorous job. But Shirley and I both started earlier this year. So some of what we are working on with the product org is how do we have the right lead time? When do we bring a product out? So two perfect examples of this, not related to the certification program. The first is the new information architecture that they announced at the keynote yesterday, which changes the user experience for everything. What should we hold? We held off on building a couple of courses because of that, because we're like, well, we can't show optimize yet because we don't have the right. So let's take the time and build the course when we're ready to be able to show what it exists. Another example is the GSAP acquisition. Can you build a course for that next week? Maybe not. We're building this. So sometimes it's a matter of saying, okay, we need some amount of like lead time, and this is what that looks like, and this is how we do it right. When it comes to the exams, there will be a refresh of the exam on a regular basis, but there are going to be periods where the exam might not be 100% current with the product, and that's industry norm. I think at one point I heard that Amazon is usually 3 to 6 months behind, and with all of their resources, I figure I get a little bit of a pass if they can do that. But that's a really good question. And by the way, we've been talking to you about part of our Webflow University we build. So we're looking at whether Xano can be part of how we're approaching that. So glad to hear you're working on certifications. Thank you.
Thank you so much.